sunny day in Southern California.
Hi, you're watching episode 12 of the Life of JEM live video podcast. This is my first show of the year. Welcome 2021. This is being filmed live from my home in the Inland Empire. I hope to be back in the Rag House Media Studio soon. I miss my producer, April. She's here virtually. I also have a special guest today who I'm going to introduce soon, rock star lawyer and my friend, Courtney Stewart Alban, who I went to USC Law School with. But first, let's watch a video from our sponsor, Hotbox Vintage. Hotboxvintage.com. I'm back. This is going to be a very interesting show for you today. Courtney and I are going to talk law, politics, writing, activism, and anything else we can fit in the time we have. But first, I'm going to read a very short essay called These Strange Days, and then we're going to jump in and start talking about the events that have happened in the last couple of weeks. It's been a historic week in the worst kind of way. What with the pandemic, the Capitol riots, a failed coup, let's call it duck a duck, and then the upcoming inauguration, we have a lot to talk about. But first, here's my story. Strange days. The limits of written discourse are clear. There is really no effective way for me to convey how I feel. The house is quiet when I'm writing this. All I can hear is the dripping of a faucet. This has been a strange week, and I am in a strange mood. I feel like I have a rock of anxiety and fear in my stomach and my chest. I feel as if I'm in a nightmare fairy tale, and I've swallowed a poison apple whole. When things happen of a historic nature, I don't believe we can always process it immediately. All of the shocking and horrifying moments that we witnessed on television on Wednesday, January 6th, felt surreal. They felt like the plot of a bad Netflix TV show. Yet, they were our moments, history in the making, to use a cliche. And all of us sat there staring at our television sets in our pandemic lockdown world. You might have even ordered a pizza or drank a beer. It's hard, even days later, to reconcile these events. They seem not quite real. Did that really happen? Is a question we may ask ourselves in the future. And yes, those events happened. It really happened. And everything just seems so unsettled. With the transition looming for the presidency, I still worry for our country. The one thing I realized while writing this essay, is that this last year since March has been a long car ride of worries. It's as if we're on a ride to nowhere or to somewhere unknown. And as I lay here writing this essay, I think to myself, I hope everything ends up okay. By everything, I mean the transition, the inauguration, the pandemic, the vaccinations. I'm sure, like all of us, I just want this to be over, all of this mess to be done with. I want to go back to the days pre-pandemic and pre-Capitol riots when the world felt less chaotic and less scary and not so tumultuous and unnerving. But I also realize, as I sit here, that for many, less privileged than I am, the world has always felt this way. That's it. That's my essay. That's Strange Days. It's on my blog. Now, let me introduce my special guest, Courtney Stewart Alban, who I am honored to have on my show. She's a great friend and an amazing lawyer. Courtney Stewart Alban, who you're going to see in a second, is a fellow USC law grad and civil litigator in Los Angeles. We served together on the board of the Public Interest Law Foundation at USC. Courtney grew up in New Orleans. She finished high school in Houston and went to college in Boston before fully transplanting herself in Southern California in 1997. She currently lives in Pasadena with her husband and now law partner, Juan Pablo Alban, their two middle-aged school children, and their beloved dog, Archer. Dog people. Courtney is an avid journal writer. This is why we're friends. With an interest in creative nonfiction writing. She is a lover of music, photography, comedy, and philosophy. She is a spiritual seeker and a truth speaker. I can tell you this. After law school, Courtney married her law school sweetheart and started a job at a big law firm where she practiced intellectual property litigation for 8 years. Courtney is the rare person who actually enjoys litigation, but she did not feel that sleeping on the floor under her desk while pregnant to take turns site-checking a brief was the best use of her skill set. She much prefers to use her talents, which are many, to fight injustice and achieve strategic results. Since leaving big firm life in 2010, Courtney has paved her own path by taking on cases and issues and clients that interest her and that she deeply cares about, rather than doing what people tell her she should do. This has led to a wide range of experiences, from briefing and Courtney successfully arguing for a change in trademark law in the Ninth Circuit, to winning a civil fraud jury trial in LA Superior Court against a startup incubator, to significant yearly pro bono representation in pre-litigation and litigation matters in state and family court. Courtney gives back, I can tell you that. She is currently working on 3 different class action lawsuits in the public interest, with the ultimate goal of making a difference in the world and in public interest litigation, while balancing her full life as a mother, a creative person, and an activist. Courtney, welcome.
Thank you, Juanita. Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
I'm so happy to have you. Oh my gosh, we have so much to talk about. So let's jump in.
Yeah.
What did you think today watching the impeachment?
It's unbelievable to me that that we are where we are. I mean, everything is just so farcical. I mean, I'm glad they did that. I was thinking though, it's interesting. It had the Senate risen to the occasion and impeached him the first time, the Republican Party would be in a much better position, as would the country, than we are today. But from their point of view, I feel like they would have had Pence. They would have probably won a second election. They would have, disclaimed Trump. But, at this point, we'll see.
It's ironic that we're praying for Pence as a president at this point. I'm like, please give us Pence. He has honor. He has integrity. I may not agree with him politically, but I do believe he has a conscience. And I think that his eyes have opened with Trump. I heard that he said something very obscene, that Trump said something very obscene to Pence. Do you want to be known as a patriot or woman's genitalia?
Oh.
And it just shows who Trump is. And, I don't want to make this a partisan conversation, but let's talk about the Capitol riots. It was unnerving. It was almost like 9/11. You and I were in law school in 9/11. It was that kind of feeling, don't you think?
It was like things are changing. The ground is, being ripped up from under your feet. Yeah. Where were you when you were hearing this? Were you at home? Were you at work?
I was working from home.
Okay. Yeah, me too. And we have like little balconies, and I immediately, like, kind of during it, was just so in that rage space. Like, okay, this is my line. Like,
Yeah.
I feel like the line has been coming, but I'm like, surely this has to be everybody's line.
Yeah.
And I went kind of like on a rant, which I don't usually do. I'm kind of grown up now, more at 47, control my emotional social media impulses, kind of learning along the way. But I did go out there and I was like, if one person, if anyone in my family, enough. And I just felt so heated, and I actually only have like two family members in my extended family, two cousins. Like, I don't even know them that well. I mean, they're my first cousins, but they live in Florida, and South Carolina. But it's like the only two people I know, and I put them on blast on social media, and I just, like, my head went all the kind of I just felt like I got almost to the end of the presidency, like through the election, like I didn't blow up too many, I didn't lose my mind, and then it was just that really put me over the edge.
This is the time where we have to take a stand, because this is something we can't come back from. And I had to delete my cousin from Montana. And it was heartbreaking to me. He's a good man, but he has really extremist views. And I had to delete a friend of a friend from San Bernardino. And I was just like, I'm done. I'm done. And then the friend of the friend called me, texted me and said, did you delete so-and-so? I said, yes. I can't do it anymore. I can't handle the delusions. And I'm a 1368 lawyer. I deal with delusionary clients for a living, and I cannot deal with this anymore. I refuse. I'm just not doing it. I'm not going to argue, waste my breath, bang my head against a wall. There's no point.
It feels like we've all been just subject to, what it's like to live with a narcissist, what it's like to, I mean, obviously I'm not a psychologist, and it's, a kind of a colloquial label, and, but it certainly, I feel like it when you see it. And there's not that many people that act with this type of character that are just in needing of such approval, to the point of denial of reality. And just zero accountability and really shamelessness. I felt like that's a quality that I saw in him. It's like, oh, if people catch you in a lie, most of us are just like, so, like, it would be, you wouldn't want that to be embarrassed. You'd be ashamed. I mean, if you remove that from the equation, that's what these, like, sociopaths, it's like, there's just no, that there's no shame, and therefore no accountability.
He was very careful what he said at that riot. And I think Giuliani went further than Trump as far as the language. We all know what Trump meant. But I think that the thing that's scariest about Trump is that he has a way, and I don't even like saying his name, our soon-to-be former president has a way of getting other people to do his bidding, much like Charles Manson talking about sociopaths. So the first thing I thought is there is liability for him here, but it's going to be hardest to prove against him, easiest to prove against the people who did the rioting and the killing and all the, vandalism and trespassing, and hardest against Trump because he was careful about what he said. He went too far still. I think they can prove it, but it's going to take a couple.
Do you know, like, when I read the kind of the transcript, and I'm not looking at it now, I felt like it was enough that when you're did you go back and look at the law, like what it is to incite violence?
Yeah, I've looked at it, and I think they can make the case, but I think he was still a little less careful than Giuliani, who said trial by combat. He said you need to be strong, you need to fight. I think
Don Jr. Did you see Don Jr. before him?
Yeah.
And the fact, what I really can't believe is, like, how many people felt that there were going to be no consequences for them. To see them not wearing masks, Juanita, I mean, it almost felt like, is this like a Darwinian moment? Like, is this like, how dumb if a mask is going to serve two purposes, to maybe not get a virus that could, kill you or someone else that you know and love.
Yeah.
And hey, not get you caught for the crime that you're committing. And yet still, it's like, I think I'm just realizing it's that saying, like, cut off your nose to spite your face.
Right.
It's kind of like that. It's just like, they're not going to wear a mask.
Yeah. And for me, I was amazed that no one was wearing masks in the crowd and how many people there were that were storming the Capitol. That's what shocked me, was the amount of people climbing walls, entering the building. And I'm sorry, but we are very lucky that these senators are not passed. We're very lucky they didn't get caught. We're very lucky that we did have some Capitol Police that was able to kind of get people out or distract the rioters and the insurrectionists and would-be murderers, probably. I mean, they had zip ties, they had cocktails, they had beer, they had bear spray they were using weapons. It's beyond anything. It's 1984 times 25. I mean, this is basically an insurrection, a war, a failed coup. And the only reason it failed was just luck, because they were seconds away from getting into that chamber. Seconds.
But also, like, I feel like there was some element of kind of this fantasy world that we've been seeing develop, and increasingly in the past even 2 years, and with like the development of QAnon, and like you said, you have a couple of cousins. I only have a couple of cousins. So even in like a liberal bubble, like, you're seeing these people coming out here and saying these things. You're sort of catching winds that, like, maybe they believe. I don't even like to know, because I'm like, I don't even want to like give lip service, like the thought, like drinking blood, like whatever. But I feel like you saw this instance where there's these parallel worlds where we're living so much of our lives online.
Yeah.
And interacting in one way. And there's sort of social rules, that are different. Like, you can say things in real life that have nuance and meaning, and we sort of get what you mean. And I have met like Trump supporters like out in the world, and it's like, oh, I'm in Louisiana, it's a shrimper, and in the context of learning about him losing his mother to breast cancer, in the context of him talking, poetically about the Louisiana coast, and and you meet a person. You're not like an up or down vote on like, Trump, yes. Like, it's, all these online, it's just like this binary world where everyone, it's the zeros and ones at the foundation, but we really live in that world where it's like, okay, Republican, no, Trump, no. Yeah. Like, everything's just kind of
I think there's no oxygen in that space, right? In this electronic social media space, there's nowhere to breathe. It's just like you're hit with all these images and all these statements, and they all have this resonance of truth because it's in print. And we lost all sense of journalistic ethics. And that, I'm sorry, but the New York Times and Washington Post and all these media outlets are actual outlets that have journalistic integrity versus the blogosphere. Because I can put whatever I want on my blog. I am a journalist, I feel like, when I write articles for Al Jazeera and other entities. But on my blog, I'm not a journalist. I'm just a blogger who wants to say what she has to say. Yes, I do my research, but most people don't.
Right.
And we can't end the discussion of the Capitol riots without talking about the way that Black Lives Matter would have been treated by the police, and the security that would have been in place had this been a people of color demonstration. And to me, that is probably one of the most disturbing things, is the lack of any kind of police presence. I mean, hundreds of police, or maybe 1,000, but not tens of thousands. And you have 50,000 minimum rioters and insurrectionists there that have a plan to take over the Capitol and basically kidnap and kill senators.
Right. And it's not like we didn't have any warning. This wasn't out of the blue, I mean, it was the internet was lit up with all this. We could see it coming. We could feel it coming, And again, it's like the fact of not wearing masks. It's like that with the racial aspect, there was a real sense of entitlement, a real sense of like, what?
Great
like
point.
In fact, I saw one of those guys, someone who got caught on all the, social media clips that we're inundated with, who literally said, "You're treating me like a black person." Did you see that?
No.
No, he's being held on the ground, and he said it unironically. And it's just like there's so much that can be in your face, and it feels like, of course, we've been attentive people, and of course everyone in the Black community has been their whole lives, but even for those of us like focusing on it, there's been as more people have smartphones, as more police have body cams, as more comes out, we've just had this building up, this watershed experience, and all being home during the pandemic. Where even I think you gained a huge number of people who up until the pandemic didn't know, like with George Floyd, like what, like, so I think it is making an impression. And then to have seen kind of this culminating moment and have these white guys just walking in there like nobody's business, and they're opening the doors. It just seems like at some point the truth has to be so evident and so obvious that you can't but help proceed, acknowledge it. But yet,
and it's like I say at the end of my essay, for people less privileged than I, the world has always felt this way. For people that don't have any kind of economic security, which I did not have necessarily half my life, the last 10, 15 years have been very good to me. And part of that was the privilege of going to USC Law School and, having a corporate law firm job after. And, that because I lived with your parents in Houston when I worked at Vincent & Elkins.
Yeah.
And we both come from a big firm culture. And I remember walking into that law firm and feeling like such an imposter, and completely probably self-imposed for the most part. But I never fit in because I never felt comfortable. And that's how most people feel when they get into these, I just watched Hillbilly Elegy, which I hate the book.
Oh.
The movie did a really good job.
I read the book. It was okay. Yeah. But I'm glad to know you liked it. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a scene in the movie, and the movie doesn't have the political undertones that the book has, which is why I like the movie better. And the guy has never used a knife and fork, like multiple forks. And he's trying to figure out which fork to use. And I remember a partner at Vincent & Elkins, we used to go to these fancy dinners, and he showed me which forks to use before dinner. And I always remembered that and thought, wow, what a gentleman. Like, to make me feel comfortable in my own skin.
That is place. So nice to know. And since that's like where my dad was, there is, it kind of kills me. And that's another aspect of being from the South. I know a lot of these people that are more so like in that middle ground where you should expect to know better. I don't know the yahoos that are showing up at the Capitol, but not to say that anyone I know couldn't have ended up there or certainly empathize with them. I have mostly, because I'm just so opinionated and on social media, those people either don't follow me, I've blocked them. Like for better or for worse, I'm kind of in a bubble in that way. But I do know a lot of people in the South, like you're talking about, that are well-meaning and well-intentioned, and like, maybe even in 2016, it looked so obvious to us, but maybe even then it's just sort of, they weren't paying attention. I was giving them the benefit of the doubt a little bit, because you've seen good people that help their neighbor, that you've never heard utter a word of animosity about anyone. And, it just
people
seems like
Vincent & Elkins, a Republican law firm in Texas, great people. They're not all Republican. There's a lot of Democrats there too.
My dad was never Republican.
No, your dad's a Democrat for sure, as is your mom. I mean, two of the best people. And I mean, there were some good Republicans there that I met. I was very good friends with a person very, active in the Republican Party. And we had our discussions, and him and I back then were able to talk back and forth. His name was John Michaels. I think he's a partner there now. And we were very good friends. And I don't know whether I could have that same relationship now with if someone was supporting Trump versus someone supporting Bush.
Right.
So, you know, it's
That's
hard
the
though.
difference. It's like he's so polarizing, such a lightning rod. I mean, it's fascinating though, like to see, you know, where do we go from here? Like how, you know, I think what they
She
feel,
makes Romney look amazing.
I know.
Can
I'm
we
like,
just have
okay, it
Romney?
wouldn't be that bad. Bush seems like a decent guy. Bush was the worst president ever. I mean, I really remember being so outraged,
And
you know,
I
at
think
Iraq.
we didn't have perspective of what an autocrat could do with someone that's a demagogue. We had no idea of what could really happen with someone that has these fascist-like tendencies. We just had no clue. We thought Romney and Bush were horrible, and Bush is painting paintings now and coming out for Democrats, and Romney is like the sanest, nicest guy there.
Yeah.
And you're just like, oh man.
You know
But
what I
then there's
think
other ones that aren't. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think with Bush, I think his fault, or you know, was ushering in well, I mean, not his only fault, but what I think happened with him is like ushering in that anti-intellectualism. I think he really rode that, and that was disturbing to me. That it was okay that he was just going to kind of putz along and be on his dad's wingtails, and he didn't show up for the army, and he had C's at Yale, and he only got in because his parents, and you know, and it was just like books, like he doesn't know all that, and that kind of emphasizing that Texas, like really like you wanted to have a beer with them, you know, but you were like, that was that inch that felt like horrible. Like, no, you need to rise to a higher standard. You're not trying to just be one of the people. We want someone who's going to be better than us. Like,
I mean, Obama, right?
You know,
I mean, the perfect example is Obama. Smart, educated, comes from blue collar background, is unlike many people. And then now we have Biden, Harris, both public servants. Biden was a public defender for a year. Harris was a district attorney for many years. I didn't always agree with her when she was a prosecutor, but she knows the system, as does Biden. Right. And I think if anything is going to change in the criminal justice system, it's going to be in the next 4 years, because these two people know what we're dealing with, especially Harris. And I always tell people, you can only fix the system if you've worked in it. And I've worked in it for over a decade, and I can't fix it. I could give ideas of how to fix it. We need state hospitals to open up. We need placements in the community, which no community wants mentally ill boarding cares in their community. At least no community like Orange County or LA or Pasadena. San Bernardino, they'll open them up. But we still don't have enough in the better areas. I mean, you need them spaced out across the whole Inland Empire and LA County to really make a difference. I have people that are waiting 6 months to a year for a state hospital bed. And right now, Patton was shut down because of COVID. People are going to Napa. That's how far they're sending people.
From here?
Yeah, from San Bernardino and Riverside. They're going to Napa, or they're going to Metro in LA, or they're going to Atascadero in the high desert. Because there's just so much COVID in the state hospitals right now.
Wow. And you were so early to write about that in the prisons. And what is happening now? Do you know, prisoners being vaccinated in California as a priority, or?
Not yet. One would hope. I know deputies are being vaccinated, and doctors and people that work in the system are being vaccinated, hopefully public defenders soon. But I think, back in March, if you would have asked me how long this would go on, I would not have believed it. I went to San Antonio, Texas for a writing conference. I was out at a bar drinking martinis with my friend Samuel. And what I wouldn't give to go back to that day.
When was that? March?
March. First week of March, first or second week of March. And then I got back. The day I got back, everything exploded. We already knew about COVID, but they kept the conference on because we didn't know how bad it was. And the conference had a lot of social distancing and stuff. And probably only half the people came, or a third of the people came that were supposed to come. But when I got back is when I wrote my article. I stayed up for 3 nights and wrote it. And then I wrote a statement on Twitter or on Facebook, and editor from Al Jazeera was like, did you really go into the jail and they had no soap? I'm like, they never have soap. And then he's
Ah,
like, I'll take your article. And I just wrote it in 3
that's
days.
awesome. Yeah, that
Mhm.
was. But
Yeah.
what has work been like since then? Like, how are you? What is your schedule? Are you in seeing people these days?
Not right now, because there's been another outbreak both at the courthouse, at the jail, and at our office. Even we've had some positives. So I wake up at 5. I start visiting people from 6 to 7:30 via video.
Wow.
Then I do my calendar every day, and then Thursdays and Fridays I
What do
sometimes
you
have
mean
to
you
go to
do your
court.
calendar? What do you mean by that?
So I have about 25 people on calendar a week. So I'll go through my whole calendar for the week for
What
Thursday
does
and
that
Friday.
entail? Like you get their names called, the judge, like you're sitting and the judge is calling names?
Usually, but right now a lot of it is email or
Okay.
video or phone. So I
So,
have not been to court for 2 weeks, but I
but
should go next week.
25 people, Juanita, what do you mean? There's 25 people that you meet them then on video a day?
A week. About
Oh,
25 to 30 a week.
a
Yeah.
week. Okay. I didn't.
Oh, there's some people that can do that in a day as a public defender. As a brand new public defender in misdemeanor court, I would see about 20 people a day. So, I mean, my practice is a much more specialized mental health practice for
Right,
people that are
right.
incompetent. So, but I mean, I have huge calendars on Thursdays and Fridays. So next Thursday, I'm going to court. This Thursday, I'm doing it via phone. So I
Okay.
kind of, if I can do it via phone or video, I do. If I can do it in person and I have to, I have to.
Yeah.
Sometimes I have to go because I have an out of custody client that needs me to stand beside him in court. So that's just something I do, and it's okay. I mean,
Yeah.
I've been going to court this whole time. The last 2 weeks have been the only time I haven't really been in court 2 days out of the week. So yeah, and I have a
Oh,
trial coming up, so that's going to be a bench trial. But a bunch of the doctors might not be able to testify, so that's getting kicked a month. So, you know, a lot of it is continuing stuff, but we still have to keep our practice going because
right.
our caseloads are so high that we need to actually advocate for people to get out. And I've
Right.
been finding placements for people, getting them out on bail. I did like 20 bail motions when the pandemic first hit. Got about 15 people out of custody, so that was a huge win. That was great.
Awesome.
Some of them went back in, but there's nothing you can do. Let's talk about the pandemic. How have
Okay.
you been surviving?
It's just so weird. How can we even talk about this? It's so weird. It's just so weird. It's like I feel like it comes in waves.
Yeah.
Where I just sometimes get that feeling, I'm a little bit like ADD, and I feel, sort of feels like when there's like a rush of like with an ADD feeling, you're just sort of like, it feels like this impulse, like something like do something or, get out. Like, and then it's like, oh, I want to, what? Like, no, nowhere to go, nothing to do. Like it's these unsatisfied sort of like urges of like, I don't know. And you just kind of remember like, oh no, still here, and I also have been watching kids go through puberty. Like I have an 11-year-old and a 13-year-old. My son turned 13 on March 13th. It's the last day he went to school.
That's Adrian's birthday. My husband's birthday. He's a Pisces. That's
he's the 13th too, Adrian?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So it was Friday the 13th. He was turning 13. And he got an announcement at school. You're not coming back on Monday. We thought like a couple of weeks. I was like, oh, cool. We were going to get together with his friends that weekend. We're like, maybe in next weekend, like literally, or like in a couple of weeks and even just they've been remarkable, the kids have been, but my son, we went into this pandemic, whatever, quarantine, and he was short, like just inching up. It was like, is he going to be shorter than me on his 13th birthday? And he was about like right even. Now he's like, it's just to see a human change, like while you're in the same four walls, and it feels like a lion, like pacing in a cage where you're like, this is not where you're meant to be, buddy. Like he's like this lumbering, like, I don't know. It just, and they're not socializing like with other kids. You realize like how much of your self and identity is it's kind of a trial by fire, like adolescence, like he's in public school, like kids are, and now it's just us, mommy and daddy and his sister.
I mean, it's amazing that we haven't all like murdered each other. The other day, and my husband was just like chewing, and I was like, "Stop!" He's like, "What?" He's been sick, and then he's negative. We're all negative. We're all lucky. But I mean, the only thing I've done recently is a Bowie concert where all these Dave Navarro, Billy Corrigan, they all did a Bowie tribute, and we watched it on TV. And for the first time, I was like dancing. I was like, woo-hoo, and I was so happy. And I was like,
fun.
This is what life used to be like. I used to be at a concert. Now I have to virtually do it. But can you imagine these kids with all of their you have them. So
they're just on fire to be like, this is when the neurons are like, and it's all about having like a ton of different social interactions. It's like when you see animals and the wild, like this is how humans do it, and we like kind of throw them in and they're like tease for this. And I mean, there's some bright, spots for sure, because I think especially as a parent, I feel selfish. It's worse for him than it is for me because after some time, like we didn't have anyone come into the house for a while, but I do have help because both Juan Pablo and I work full time, and mainly what we have help with is dinner. Like it's like 4 to 6. So
yeah,
I mean, that's huge. It's, I've been privileged in that respect. I can't imagine what parents are doing with young children. And especially I read recently, Juanita, did you see this? It's like every single one of the 140,000 jobs lost or something is women.
Yeah.
Like men got a net gain in December of 16,000 and every single one. And so, we're trying to do it all at home and trying to make it like take the conference call and do the, and manage the kids. And it's just so much. Like
you should have seen me today. It's like I woke up at 5. I did my visits till 7:30. Then I have the dogs, made my husband breakfast and coffee. He had to go to work. Then I put on the TV for my mother-in-law. I run upstairs, work on my cases for 3 hours. Then I have a meeting at lunch. Then my dogs need to go out. I have to take the dogs out. Then I'm like, oh shit, I have my podcast. What am I going to make for dinner? Throw a pizza in the oven at 3. Oh, I got to take a shower. I got to go back to work. I mean, these jobs are getting more hours out of us than they ever have. The first months of the pandemic, 60 hours a week I was working. My husband was like, shut the effing computer. You've been online for 12 hours straight. I wasn't going to the restroom. I was in my pajamas. Yeah, but it wasn't fun. It was my back. Oh.
I have had times like that too, when it's so intense, the stress, and it's so many hours, and it's like I'm just there and I'm just at home, like you're saying, you're not even going to the bathroom. Like it's that where I'm like in that frenzied pace, and also like litigation or being in when it's like you're contesting and you're like opposing and you're it's I don't know, but never going anywhere, and like
yeah.
I just feel so sad though sometimes too. I mean, often, but like, when you really just feel it, right? Rather than just like knowing it. Like
and then add in alcohol abuse during the pandemic, which I was engaging in for the first 6 months, and I've cut back a lot, and other abuse of other things, to relax and stuff.
Yeah.
And I've had to cut it back because
food,
Oh, food? I ate Nutella toast like 8 times a day for like 6 months, and I gained so much weight. Then I lost some weight. Now I'm gaining it back.
Yeah.
I mean, our bodies are going to be shot after all this. I mean, there's no way.
And to see people like even seeing like people's like mouths or just being close to someone, like it's okay, like you're saying, but it just feels. I feel like a little bit of that, like agoraphobic. Like I'll find I'm like, even though I can go to the store and I'm not like technically so afraid of like walking in to get something, I'm just resistant to it. Like I'm just like, oh, it's okay here. Like it seems like this like big deal out there. Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, I don't need, I'll wait till tomorrow, or like, I don't know. I just think we're all, what are the effects going to be? It's so,
I make myself go to my appointments. I have my skin appointment where I can still see my skin doctor in Claremont for, little touch-ups and stuff that I want to do. And then I still see my chiropractor because I have to, because I'm going to be a wreck. And I still see my hairstylist when I can.
I haven't done one thing. And not because another thing I hate is everybody be like, stay the fuck home. Like, you know,
You're the fuck
changing
home.
a hair. This is the kind of thing like in person.
I
You're like,
gotta go on screen with gray fucking hair and a bunch of wrinkles and no facial. I'm sorry, I can't.
Yeah.
I
Well,
can't.
but to each making their own small decision. You know what I mean? Like to each, to me, respecting that you're doing what works for you, or you're taking a calculated risk and then going to get your hair done. The judgment
When I got
around
my pedicure about 3 months in, I found a place where I could get a pedicure, and I went by myself. I wore a mask. They were back open. It was legal, but I was like, thank God. Oh my God. I'm sorry. My toes were hammered.
I want a massage. That's what I haven't done any of the things. Like now's not the time.
You can get a massage at a chiropractic office, and it's very safe. It's very sterile. They only have one person coming in at a time. You wear a mask.
Yeah.
They have, so that's what I did because I have really bad back problems because of my chest. And I honestly couldn't breathe. I was like, I'm going to end up in the hospital if I don't get a back massage because like my stress was like, my anxiety was like so here. And I think that's what people aren't realizing. The mental health issues are so huge. Prevalent right now. So prevalent.
And abuse, like I thought you were saying, you know, alcohol abuse, but it's like, that's our, you know, and yeah, it's so minimal for me personally. But to think about kids trapped in abusive homes, like relationships, like women, like having nowhere to go, and so many people losing their jobs and their livelihood, and so many people losing their businesses and just hanging on and working their asses off. Even the bougie little shops in my area, like the milk and cheese, you know, the wine and cheese shop. That's my little like bougie thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to stop by and get like yummy cheese or whatever. And, but like, they're just nonstop working just to stay, you know, afloat. And like, no one's killing it, you know, right now. And I don't know how we're going to deal with this, you know, the fallout from this, because it's like industries that you just wouldn't, I don't know. It's in so many industries that, you know, it's not just the bars, but, and the live entertainment and like theater but
there's so much service industry. My best friend from, elementary school that I still best friends with, one of them, Melinda, she's a waitress and she's a bartender, and her job has been decimated. And she has 2 kids, and she's lucky. She's found other avenues to, you know, get by. And I just think we are not even realizing the financial and economic ramifications on pink collar jobs and blue collar jobs in the service industry, hotel managers, everyone from the bus boys to the waitress to the management to the CEOs. There's going to be
even to the you know, the property owners and the commercial real estate and I mean, at every level, people are affected by this. I mean, no one more sympathetic than the people that can't afford, that are thinking about hunger and medicine and, you know, a place to get to live. And, you know, it's so much. And what really kills me, though, is that we're not being the Americans that I grew up thinking that we were. You know, I mean, I feel like slowly, sure, college and on, like that image gets chipped away and you realize like, oh, this is who we are. And, you know, but I think things aren't black and white. And I think there are aspects of that kind of American mentality that were true, you know, as far as at least like coming together and working together and making and creating and like really being a leader in like ingenuity and like imagination. I mean, look at Hollywood, like look at the impact we've had, social media, like the freaking internet, like all the things that we came together and have done, like, and we're not doing that. You know, we're just at this crisis moment that like our, you know, World War II generation, like grandparents, as we're kind of coming of age to be like stewards and, you know, a more mature elders, you know, like responsible for this. And I just feel so saddened that this is the time when we need to be solving these problems.
And the student loan debt
at the helm,
you know,
like
all of that,
yelling at us the whole time.
Yeah. And I think that things will change with this new administration, but we as, you know, lawyers and advocates and people that are more privileged than others, we all need to reach out, help out in our community, give people a voice, give money whenever you can. I just think that it's so hard because I'm lucky and I want to help and I need to do better. And I think we all can do better.
Yeah. It's
yeah.
hard to know exactly what you can do, but.
So let's end with this question. I wrote another blog recently about love, about let love rule. And I think that's really what we're talking about is like loving our neighbor, loving our community. I know you have a great marriage and kids, but how do you keep your love strong in these chaotic times?
Kind of love within my family or?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what? I feel like that I'm not, it hasn't been hard for me in that respect. I do have a good relationship and I have a good, and we have space and especially I have easy kids. Like I can't think about how I would have been, my brother would have been, like we were fighting and my nuclear family, where there was much more like big feelings and angst and fighting and things felt, I don't know, just more unstable, frankly, than they do here. So that's like not a problem really for me. I think it's about what's harder is embracing that side of me that would try to make bridges to people from the South, really, because I feel like I have connections, even if it's just like, hundreds of people on social media. And even the people that are like Democrats, but they don't, they don't like think as much about being anti-racist or, they're still not, I don't know, they're not really realizing kind of the gravity of the situation. And I feel like I could be useful in speaking to some people, but I have a hard time not just being angry. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So trying to find love in that sense to sort of like, okay, like let's have a conversation rather than I just want to like, I can't, like, I feel so angry. So I grapple with that, but.
Yeah. And I think you can be an ambassador. They're going to listen to you perhaps because you look like them or you come from the same town as them or you went to the same school as them. And I think that's the reality is that we all are drawn to people that are like us in some way, or that we admire, and it doesn't have to be a race thing. It can be economic, or it can be like a background thing or an intellect thing or same law school.
Yeah.
I was drawn to you from the beginning. And I think it's because we're both strong women. And,
and we were on the board of, we had a public interest law, but I love your creativity and that you're about more than, I went to law school and maybe you thought the same thing. I thought everyone else was going to be like, not cool, like just so serious. It just felt so like, wow, law school. And, to find people that have interest in music and interest in spirituality and, other things was awesome.
Yeah. I'm starting to let my quirky flag fly. I was I kind of hid it when I was probably in law school and people really didn't know who I was. I tried to put on an act like I was someone else. I think when I finally hit 45 or 46, I said, fuck it. Just be who you are. It's not going to hurt. I mean, I don't care anymore what people think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Amen. I think that's the best thing about growing older. Really. It's just like now or never,
Yeah. The body fails us and our soul kind of lifts us up and we say, fuck it. I like who I am. I don't mind that I'm,
I've been so impressed by you, Juanita, and it's just been amazing to watch your journey and like putting, yourself out there. And I've loved your blog and I've loved your social media presence and now this and just, killing it, like doing your MFA program and moving on to PD. I mean, I've loved every minute of watching your journey. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being on. And if you start a podcast soon, because I know you're thinking about it.
Yes, we are going to.
Please, you and Juan Pablo, send me a link. I'll put it on my page.
Thank you. I would love that.
Want to promote it. And I'm very proud of you. You're amazing.
Thank you.
Yay.
I will. Fun.
Okay, well, thank you everyone for listening today. We're going to be back in a couple weeks. We have an upcoming roster of amazing writers and thinkers like Courtney, who is amazing. In 2 weeks, on January 27th, we're going to have Sean Shauna Lee I. Perrin on. She just wrote this amazing post-punk novel called Radio Waves that deals with a romance around Joy Division and Manchester, England in the late 1970s. I mean,
oh my God.
oh, she's amazing. I've read portions of the book. She's going to send me the whole book. I'm going to read it before the 27th. She's going to be on January 27th. And then on February 10th, we have Tejana, Texas writer Cecilia Bailly, who used to write for Texas Monthly. She has a PhD in anthropology. She's an expert on the border. And she's going to be on.
Wow. So exciting.
Yeah, exciting. So thank you, Courtney, so much for being on.
You,
have
Juanita.
such a great mind, such a great spirit. Thank you, April, our DJ producer and Rag House Media owner. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you so much.
Let's dance it out.
Got it. Don't worry.